Hey, this is Cute Noise, and in this video I want to walk you through my process of creating a track, mixing and mastering and publishing. And now you ask why? Well, first of all, because I can. I like the whole process, I like the journey, and I like to do things myself. Of course, I could ask somebody to master my track, but I enjoy the process, so why should I give it away? And the other thing is, sharing is caring. First of all, it helps me because you might find my song. Second, you might learn something. Third, I might learn something from you because you end up writing me a text and then I write you back and we end up happy ever after, connected and learning together. I think it's a good idea. Now, the song we are discussing, The Making of Depths of Light, is published under the name Fumami. You can find it on Spotify or any other streaming service. I published it myself via CD Baby, and we can talk about the process a bit. I will not go into depth about songwriting or how to create the beat or something like that. There are other people, they can do that better. I want to talk about the overall process because there's not a lot of videos out there who talk about that. And that's why I thought I will share my process. Okay, let's dive in. Alright, I'm in Ableton. This was a few months ago, I think February, I guess, where I had the first idea for this. And it's really just an idea, it's a sketch. What I sometimes do, not always, sometimes I have a melody in my head, sometimes I have a chord progression in my head, sometimes I start out with a beat. In that case, I was listening to a quite famous song and I really liked the chord progression. So I used the chord progression to create an A, B, like part A and part B of this kind of sequence. And it's really just, it's a repetition. It's constantly A, B, A, just as a starting point. In that case, I started with strings. I want to have something very slow. I will turn off all the effects so you can hear how I started. So it's the first. And by the way, the colors are terrible. I have no really a system of colors. I always try, but I fail. If you have a system, let me know. Okay, so these are just the raw string ensemble, which is already sounds really good. It's one of these Ableton packs. It's pretty nice sound already, so there's not much I can argue. I fixed a bit some of these settings here, and then I add a velocity just to create a bit of a randomness of how strong each of the notes are coming along. And then later I have here a send which goes into a reverb. I'm using the Valhalla Supermassive. It's a free delay and reverb tool. It's pretty amazing. And that's how it sounds with. And yeah, as I said, it's just A and B with some chords which are leading between the two parts. And then I thought I want to add a melody with a piano. So I have this grand piano. It's also an instrument from Ableton. And I will just explain very quickly what I did to the sound. Let's continue here. So I just copied the chords. I just changed the notes slightly. Also the voicing is different. But in general are these the same notes. I created a more narrower voicing, so there's a more dissonance. You can hear more dissonance. I also use a randomizer to, you know, randomize the strength of the hits on the notes. And then I added a arpeggiator. And that's weird because it's now just one note per chord, which of course doesn't work. But the idea was here that I play with the LFO MIDI device, and that randomizes the division. So normally LFO, how it works, you could have like and you can choose like for example a sine wave, which you can see it changes the division in a certain rhythm. And the different ways, triangles. In that case I used random, and that gives you the feeling that somebody's just playing with the piano, not playing, I mean somebody who actually, or like practicing. It's not very controlled, but I like that kind of feeling. I added a bit of a equalizer, took off a bit of the brightness. I liked it more mellow. And then I added a delay here. One of the new tools, you know. I will not go into detail really, but yeah, I just played around with stuff just to create a more spooky sound. And with an LFO, this time it's an audio LFO, I changed here the shift slightly, very slowly, and that was my piano sound. I copied everything, I froze them, so I have audio files for this. And I also have here a filter delay, just a simple filter delay on the piano, and the whole thing sounded like this at the end. That was my idea. And now we jump into the whole arrangement. Alright, what I did here, normally I mark all these, give them names, add a locator and say intro. But in order to come up very quickly with a structure for a track, I often just take a song which I really like and take that structure. I'm not copying the song, I just copy the structure of it as a starting point, and then I change depending on what I need for my song. But it's a very good way to start a structure, because you need a structure, otherwise you don't tell a story, you don't have highs and lows. And very quickly from beginning on, I have an intro, I have a main theme where I also played some guitar, I have the intro again but with the drum beat, I have a chorus again, and then I have a part towards the end where it becomes very quiet, and then the finale at the end again with guitars. That's pretty much the song structure. It's a chill trap song, so it doesn't have to be exactly like intro, verse, chorus, verse, chorus, bridge, and so on. It doesn't have to have that, but it needs to have some structure. But yeah, you can just get a song and listen to the structure and then apply that to your song, for example. I would just go through all the instruments. So, and by the way, I don't have a plan at the beginning. I have my idea, that's it. And then I just start adding things. In that case, the drums. I will again try to take off all the effects first. So I have the drums are here in a group. I have a lot of sends and returns in here, a ton of send and returns. Well, I will talk about this later. I'm just turning off all the effects. That will be more interesting with the mixing. And I use quite some stuff here on the master, which I will keep for now because otherwise it will mess up everything. So I have often I use a bit of a mastering, some master plugins or a master setup, even when I create my stuff, because it gives me a feeling of how it might be when it's mastered, which I then take off completely and then I mix it and then I master it again. But yeah, let's go through each step by step. Kick. So I added a kick. The kick, so it's just a simple 808 kick, already prefabricated for me. Just take it from Ableton, from one of the packs. I played a bit with the attack, the decay, and that's pretty much it. And then I added an EQ here, just a normal kick EQ. And the emphasizes here is on the around the 100 hertz, just separated from the bass. The bass is on the lower end, and the kick is slightly further up. So that's one thing. The kick, the snare it's a simple 808 snare. I pitched it quite a lot. It has a much higher pitch than the original. I take off all the lows here, a bit of the high end, and then I emphasize the main sound of the kick. That's the kick. The snare, sorry. I added another snare just to add a bit more meat to this thing. So this is a more realistic snare sound. I also added a clap. I slightly offset the clap location. I just pushed the clap slightly to the front, so the sound doesn't completely overlap. Because if you overlap them all the same on the grid, they cancel each other out somehow. So I like to spread it out a bit. A lot of people do that anyway. Then the hi-hat. Again, it's just a really simple 808 hi-hat. I again played with the attack, the decay, just to have it not too much bite. Took off all the low ends here. I also have an open hi-hat. It's just the sound, really. I'm not sure if it's needed. And then there's a MIDI track in here, which I don't know why is it there, but that's my drum. And then in the group I have a bit of an EQ. And sometimes this is happening during the mixing, that I need to kind of control certain frequencies a bit better. That's why that looks like as it looks like. Then I have here a vintage tape, which adds a bit of warmth. It's probably not that needed. And this is a commercial, like a bought plugin, Ozone 9. You might get away with just Ableton plugins to do something similar. But yeah, I tried this one. It sounds good. And then the TDR Kotelnikov. This is a free compressor, quite a nice compressor, and it has some drum bass kind of setting. And I didn't change much. I just changed the threshold a bit, so I can get a bit of a gain reduction, and then also use the makeup gain to get back to the same level, and then a limiter. That's it, just in case. That's my drums. The bass. The bass, instead of like using a normally in trap music you use like a long version of the kick drum as a bass sound. And in that case I found this wavetable pre-organized sound in Ableton, I think I even created it myself. That was quite good, and I used the glide mode to actually create this pitching effect. You can hear it in some of the areas, some of the parts. Yeah, you can see if I go in here. just add these like small little details to it. It's like with a glide effect, just pitching it. Just to add some interest, a bit of a randomness as well. Then we have our string ensemble, which we already heard. We have the piano, and the piano I did quite a lot here. So the piano, we have the piano which creates the melody, but then I thought I need another piano which emphasizes the chords a bit more. And what I did, I took the MIDI section of the chords, I reversed the MIDI, all the chords within the MIDI arrangement. Then I was freezing it and then reversed it again. So yeah, you have the reverse sound of the piano, but the chords in the right place. And then for the chorus, I just doubled this with the original piano chords, which are not reversed. It's just an interesting little trick. Now the melody also changed quite a lot. So I did the same here. I reversed the MIDI track and then was freezing the whole thing and then reversed it back. So that's why it says here freeze. So that created my final melody. And that's pretty much the whole song. There's a riser. It's just a simple white noise riser here. It always helps to change to another part. And then I just added playing more with some effects. There's this tool which is one of the Max for Live tools. Also, you can also download these from Ableton, from the Ableton's page. This is called Vector FM. It's quite interesting. It's like an instrument, so you don't need to add another instrument, and it works with a MIDI track. Again, I'm using the velocity. I really like that. Feels more naturalistic. And then we have the Vector FM, and that's how it sounds. Again, I took away all the low end because otherwise the mix gets muddy. But yeah, it creates a really interesting effect. Then another tool I discovered is this one. Tree tone. It just adds some noise in the background. That's it. It's just filling the space. Then I added this wood short bong, which does this. That kind of happened because I was listening to it and I heard some noise in the background, and it felt like I need this kind of rhythm with a ping pong delay. So that's what I did. So yeah, that's the whole story about this thing. And then I thought, okay, that's not enough. I need some melody. I need something which really like an earworm. And I used the guitar for this because it just, yeah, it worked the best way I felt. For the guitars, there's not much there. It's just what I did. I used one of the standard pre-organized, amp simulations directly in Ableton. They already sound really good. Just the guitar just plugged in into my audio interface. I just doubled it, placed it on two sides. By the way, you can only hear mono at the moment. It's just a limitation of my setup here. But go on Spotify and listen to the song so you can hear it properly, the final result. But what else is in here? So we have IQ again. All the lows are taken off. Don't need these. I add a bit of a width with the utility plugin, a compressor just to control the loudness, and again a ping pong delay. And I use slightly different settings for the second guitar sound. It's the same guitar though. And then on the group channel for the guitars, I just have this pitch shifter, which I shift at the end of the section. And that's pretty much it. Here what I added here was the tail of the guitar, and I just reversed it, so I have another riser basically. It sounds like this. I have quite a lot of return channels here. One is for the drums. F. This is, I add a bit of a more punch to it. There's another compressor in there. There's a pedal just to distort the sound a bit. Another effect. And here I just process the higher frequencies, where I also like create a wider sound and then add a bit of warmness to the whole thing. That's it. Probably you don't need so much processing. The bass has also a send here on E, which is also sending basically higher frequencies with a bit of distortion. So add a bit of distortion. The reason why I do this is so it's like parallel distortion, which adds higher frequencies to the bass. Otherwise, if you listen to the sound on a shitty speaker, you might not hear the bass at all. It doesn't have that frequency range. That's why I add a bit of a grit, so the bass can be heard also in the higher frequency. That's what we did here. For the strings, again, we have the Valhalla, as we said before. I didn't bake that into the sound yet. I still wanted to play with it. We have the filter delay on the piano melody. the Vector FM is also on the Valhalla Supermassive, and I have a second Supermassive here just for the guitar riser. That's pretty much it. And on my master channel, I always add a bit of mastering to this first mix, so I can hear how it sounds like when it's mastered, or get an idea how it might sound. What I did here was, again, I have the glue compressor, which I always use. Then I have here another compressor just to test. Sometimes I have more different compressors, just trying different things, different settings. Then I was splitting the sound, the highs and the lows. I just group and split the signals in two. Then I have like a lower end signal and a higher end signal. It sounds exactly the same, but then I can process, for example, the higher frequencies with a different width. So I can play with the width of the sound, make it feel wider. So the bass stays in the center, and all the higher frequencies, they can spread out a bit. And then here I just did some adjustment. I had to take off some of the frequencies which doesn't sound very well, very nice. Here I used this is just a meter, just to check. And then I have my mastering tool. Actually, this is a vintage tape, again, just to add some grit and a bit of warmth to the whole thing. And here at the end I have my mastering section, which is the Ozone 9 is a mastering tool which helps you, especially if you don't have a good monitor speaker. This really helps you because it has some equalizer, some dynamic compressor, dynamic EQ, and a maximizer, which just pushes your signal wherever you want to have it. And that pretty gives you the quite good impression of what a final master might sound like. At the end, it also comes with this balance tool, which is pretty good. If you don't have a good monitor, this helps me so much because I can just choose a certain genre and check how is the balance between low and high and middle frequencies of a song, and which one is pleasant for the ear. So the developer, they analyzed a lot of different genres with hundreds of different songs, and they came to roughly this curve. And you can also instead of using using one of these music styles, you can also load a song you like where you think the audio balance is really nice, and then you just look if your sound is within that range. So in that case, EDM. So I'm there. It's not perfect, but it's also it's not the final master anyway. Alright, after this I go into mixing. When I mix my track, first what I do is I take off all the master plugins. I'll basically do this. I turn everything off, and then I listen. And I try to, so I start with one instrument, for example, or let's say with the drums. Very often I start with the kick and the bass. I try to have them in a similar loudness. Similar loudness. Here the kick is a bit louder. Then the snare. I try to have the snare slightly, maybe similar loudness as the kick. Here the kick is more important. The hi-hats, I try to have them more in the background, not too loud. Otherwise they're getting annoying. Then I add my strings. They need to sit in the background. They're actually fairly low here. I add my melody, my guitars. The guitars can be slightly louder. I mean, there's of course way more to talk about, but what I'm trying to do is that I'm not exceeding the minus 12 dB. I'm actually here a bit higher, it's still okay. So around minus 9, minus 10, that's what I'm aiming for. So I have enough headroom later on. And then I freeze everything. I freeze all the audio. The mix freeze is good to get rid of, basically process most of the effects. So that is all basically, it's baked into the audio, and that makes the mixing a bit faster as well. Not just that, so in this stage I also make sure that the balance between the different instruments is good in all sections. So there's a lot of automation going on. For example, you know, fading out stuff or making stuff slightly louder if needed, especially here for the piano. Piano becomes louder for these, like for the chorus section, and the same for the second piano. But then the second piano also has like these like very long fades, or like fades like this. It is just to make sure that every section has its correct mix. Here I have actually nothing in my master. He's really just about the balance of all the elements. So it's still like fixing the loudness of each instrument for each section. After this, I export this as an audio file. When I export, I make sure that I use certain settings. So I export here with 48,000 Hertz sample rate. It needs to be one of these files. Bit depth, I actually try to have it fairly high. You can use 24 at least, and no dither. No dither. You don't need that to master it. And then I export the whole audio file. So in here is just the export from the previous file. You can only hear the mono version. I'm sorry for that, but you can listen to the final version of the track on Spotify. And then the mastering, thanks to this tool here, the Ozone 9, it really allows me to master in a very high quality, because it basically helps me along with the whole mastering process automatically. So it has this, it's analyzing your song and tries to find the best setup of these tools: equalizer, dynamic compressor, dynamic EQ, and then the maximizer. And you can push it as far as you need, basically. And I'll just play that quickly. I'll take everything off. So here I have my Ozone 9 vintage tape drive. Then I have a compressor. It's just a mastering process. It adds a bit of warmth to it. Then I split the signal into middle and side. I use this, I tried this Marvel IQ, which is pretty good, to just get a bit of some of the frequencies which were missing. Also this Lufticus EQ is pretty good. So I use a lot of different IQs after the other, just testing, you know. This is my way to get to know a tool. Later on I might figure out, okay, I don't need the other one actually. I can just use this one. But yeah, you know, at the end I end up with this kind of chain, which is always different. Just new track, new things. And then the Ozone does its own work, and of course it adds the loudness you want. And turning this on makes it already much louder. then export this when I'm done with the mastering. I'm exporting it as for streaming. Depends on where you want to publish it. If you publish a CD, this might be different. But then I export it with the 44,100 hertz and with a WAV file. You can also use any of these, it doesn't matter. 16-bit depth, and I use a dither. Normally I use a triangular dither. What's great in Ableton, you always can see what the tool does in this, like in the lower portion of your window. And now I'm just realizing that with my stupid image you might have not seen everything. Anyway, it's just an overview really. Now I export this and then I go to my publishing page, which is CD Baby. And I can then add a new title in here. So you need to sign up. You need to make sure, and it guides you through the whole process. But what I'm suggesting, if you create your own music, I would sign up to a music rights organization, depending where you are. You can release an album or a single song. For example, like release a single song. There's different price points. If you want to get royalties on your songs, then you need to choose this version here that makes sure that whoever plays your song in the radio, you get basically some share of that through the performance rights organization administration. So I normally choose this option here, but I mean, there's nothing against the cheaper option, of course, if you think that's fine for you. But yeah, it guides you through the whole system. I don't really need to go. I mean, I can now select this here. I can choose, artist name, the name of the song. It guides you through the whole process. And then you just pay, and then it gets uploaded to all the streaming sites. If you have any question about this, I'm happy to do a video about just the publishing part. And CD Baby is not the only platform where you can do that. There's DistroKid and there are others. I like CD Baby. I started with it. I stick with it. I don't want to change it. What I like is that I just pay once. I don't pay an annual fee. It probably wouldn't make much difference also, but I like that I can basically create a project and then I pay once for it and then it's up there forever. Or at least nearly forever. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned a bit about my process. Listen to my track. Follow me on Spotify. Alright, see you in the next video. Ciao.